Welcome to Smart Chickens, a creative B2B SaaS podcast where we try to hatch and explore new innovative demand strategies to drive revenue. In our episodes, we have authentic, non-scripted conversations with B2B SaaS founders and leaders, where we cover deep dives into their professional journeys and uncover the strategies they use or follow in building and working within high-growth SaaS companies.
So welcome, G, co-founder and CEO of Lemlist, to Smart Chickens. It's a podcast dedicated to SaaS demand gen founders and leaders, where we deep dive into the founder's journey, their story, as well as what are the innovative strategies they're using to grow their business and, more importantly, grow their clients' businesses. So welcome.
Thanks a lot for having me, Jenny. I'm super happy to be here.
Awesome. So, I have been following you for some time, as well as 8,000 other folks that you've got in your client base. And I think you have a very unique, journey or background journey, which I think is important when looking at how a SaaS company grows, is always looking at the people behind it, right? And also what was their aha moment to get into SaaS. So if you could describe a little bit of what your background is and how you kind of got into this 6 years ago to building out Lemlist.
Yeah, definitely. So essentially, my parents grew up on a farm in the south of France, and they didn't study or get any degree. So when they got my brother and me, they kind of sacrificed a lot so we could get really a proper education. And for them, business or studying business was not about getting an education. For them, I needed to study science. So I became an engineer, chemical engineer. And after that, because, I never really had the chance to travel with my family. During my studies, I worked on the side, I did pretty much every job from babysitting to salesman to pretty much everything. And essentially, I traveled for a year and I was using social network to stay at people's home for free. And when I wanted to stay longer, in some places, I would just work in exchange for accommodation. So I worked in Colombia in a coffee farm. I was an English teacher in Bolivia. I worked in permaculture in Costa Rica. And when I came back to France, I was okay, I really loved and enjoyed this freedom, I had during this entire year. And to get the same feeling, I felt starting a business would be the good path. But to start a business, you have to be good at business. So I thought, okay, because I know I'm good at studying, I'm going back to school and I'm going to get a master in marketing. So I was accepted into the best business school in France to study marketing. I started my first business with my dad. So my goal at that point was, okay, my dad sacrificed a lot. We're starting a business together. I became officially the biz guy of the family by getting to that prestigious school. So now it's the time for me not to disappoint him. So I was kind of putting a lot of pressure on him, because for me, whenever we would launch the website officially, we would get tons of orders. I had built a community around Paris, and the brand was called Paris Reste un Rêve, which stands for Paris Remains a Dream. And essentially, I thought that by having this community, I could drive tons of sales to when we launched the website. When we launched it, we only got 6 orders. And after that, I felt like shit. I was damn, how exactly am I going to be? My big plans of having this huge launch, hundreds of orders, and a lot of word of mouth afterwards went into the garbage, because 6 orders would not generate word of mouth for your brand. So after that, I was feeling really bad. I had disappointed. I had let down my dad. Looking at him was reminding me of, kind of this failure. Our relationship kind of suffered. And a friend of mine asked me, if I wanted to join him on a new adventure of building an agency to help people find clients. So I knew that I had this issue, of not being able to find customers. And he really knew at the time, how to do this. So I was okay, my friend can really teach me a lot of things. And this is a problem that I faced. So I know it's real. Let's go, let's start doing this. So we started doing a lot of outbound prospecting. So reaching out to people in order to get clients for them. And after a few months, we generated hundreds of thousands of dollars for our clients, then millions. And then eventually, I was okay, I've learned a lot in this kind of past year, but I feel all the tools on the market right now are very not representative of what's the day-to-day of a sales rep. Everyone's telling you, put your sales on autopilot with our software. The truth it's not like this, like whenever you do sales, you have to build relationship. To build relationship, you need personalization. Personalization takes time. So how exactly can we build the best software to allow for extreme personalization and help people really build warmer relationships? And in 2018, that's where I met my I met Vianney and François in 2017. And in 2018, we decided to launch Lemlist. So 3 years later, we have tens of thousands of users worldwide. We're growing at a 2-digit month over month. We're like a multi-million-dollar company. So it's been an exciting journey, but I guess we're going to get back to that.
No, it's incredible. And thank you for sharing that, because I think just like any success story, like as an analogy, the team that wins a World Cup, people just on ESPN or FIFA see the highlights, but they don't see all the struggle, the practices, the defeats, right? And so I'm glad you're sharing that, because it's not always about success in the headlines that you could read in TechCrunch. And I know you've been covered by a lot of SaaS, industry. And I love it that you said recently, I think, that, the measurement of a business, especially in SaaS, shouldn't be measured by how much they bring in from VCs for a Series A or Series B. And you said, I think, quote, that you can measure on profitability, on the happiness of employees, on how much you're really impacting as value to your clients through your software. And that's a unique, and I don't know if maybe it's because the background that you just mentioned kind of shaped you and your founders into thinking this way, because as you know, 2020 hit everyone hard with a pandemic, but certain industries, SaaS being one of them, was given an injection, and almost it helped accelerate digital transformation across all industries. So the Lemlists of the world are going to benefit. The Gong.ios of the world are going to benefit. You name the SaaS company, they're all either getting VC money thrown at them and or just in growth scale, right? But it's interesting that you have that outlook. You remind me a little bit of a founder of Moss, and now he's SparkToro.
Yeah, Rand Fishkin.
Yeah. Rand went through that, didn't go down the VC, and then wrote a book about it, which is an interesting book if you haven't read it, right?
Yeah, love it.
Yes, I love it too. And then now he's got SparkToro, very, just 2-team founder, bootstrapped, have a different type of arrangement in terms of investment and capital. But yours is amazing in that it's been bootstrapped. So take us back to how you've been able to accomplish that. And that whole, I think your background when you talk about community, the one thing that I think really separates you guys outside of obviously your software, that it does what it's, delivers on the promise, is that you've taken the time in your team to build an incredible, how did, unpack that a little bit for us. How did you guys think about it? How did you strategize about it? And,
definitely. So I'm going to be entirely transparent on every single step with no bullshit, pardon my French, but it all started, in 2018. At first, we wanted to raise money, because for me, when I was checking out the media, I was like, okay, if you want to be successful, you need to raise money. That's the only path to success. I started talking to VCs for maybe a couple of weeks. I met 15 different VCs. And then they were all telling me you are no one, we don't know you. You are in a super competitive space. You'll never make it, et cetera, et cetera. And on the side, I had onboarded a few customers to Lemlist. At that time, it was early beta. And I received this message from one of our customers telling us, hey, G, thanks a lot for your help. Just closed a $20,000 contract. It will allow me to hire someone new from the team. This is awesome. And then I was first, I'm super happy for you. But then I'm fuck, we're not charging you for the software and we should. So I went from that. And then I was okay, do you really want to focus on talking to VCs who don't really know and the market you're in and what you're capable of doing? Or do you want to keep providing value to people who actually acknowledge all the things that you're doing for them and kind of change their life? So I decided to focus on the second. And very quickly, we launched on Product Hunt, got #1 product of the day. So we received a lot of users. Then we launched with another company called AppSumo back in the day. Which
Noah Kagan.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
So we got in 2 weeks after launching with AppSumo, we were making $160,000. It's a one-time fee, but so AppSumo took 70% of that, which essentially left us with 48K. But it's still good, whenever you're launching, especially because we launched the company with $1,000. So $334 each. And essentially, like at that time, I was the only one doing support, so customer support, sales, and marketing. And because I had like way too many people asking me questions, etc., I was like, okay, I need to create and build a community. So I started like a Facebook group. I started answering questions over there, and step by step, I could feel like people, really engaged in the videos that I was sharing, in the tips that I was sharing. And it felt like I was communicating with way more people through only one channel, which I kind of loved. So at first, I didn't have in mind to create like the biggest community around sales automation that we have right now. It was more about, okay, I want to provide value to people because I'm kind of sick to see all these articles online which are stating that, yeah, use this template and you're going to be like a millionaire. Like, as you can see, on blog like HubSpot or things like that, where obviously they are really good in SEO, so search engine optimization. So their article will always come up on top, but the truth is like the quality of the content is not there. All sales articles have been written by people working in marketing, which is quite funny. It's like you've never done like sales and marketing. First of all, they don't like each other a lot, and on top of it, it's like it feels like you write articles for something you've never done, which to me it's crazy. It's like, and we approach things in a very, very different way. So I started like sharing every single week. So every single week I was launching campaigns with Lemlist, and I was taking like the best campaigns I launched and explaining to our users why exactly did it work. So I started this series for 20 weeks in a row. And early on, like we started to see like people were really amazed because like Guillaume is sharing his templates, it's like fully transparent. He's sharing like value bombs all the time. And for me, it was really like, okay, every single week it was challenging because I was like, okay, I need to find a new approach. I need to find something different. I need to test things. And step by step, we started building really, really a lot of trust with the community. I consider the community as a family. That's why it's called Lemlist Family, because I just, even in the way I talk or in the way, I express myself, I'm like, it's no bullshit. I will never tell you like that something is like this if it's not. It's just like the way I am. I'm more like straight to the point, and I don't really like fluff and everything. And later on, with this community, if you go back in 2018 and you ask any sales rep in the world, like, can you share your templates you've used in your cold email campaign? Like, people would say, no, it's my secret sauce. It's my secret weapon. I'll never share it. Right now in 2021, we have built the biggest hub with real cold email templates from real users with real results, something you would never see anywhere. And this is because we built trust. For years, we built trust with our users, and now they are happy to share and give back also.
I love that you're talking about that full transparency community, and I've been on it and I've even used it. And I love that, yes, people put in their real cold email templates. They put the good and the bad, like what worked, what didn't work, what the results were from Lemlist using it. And to your point, really, there is no secret sauce anymore. Everyone thinks they have a secret sauce, but it's not real. Everyone's trying to go after similar markets. The 5 different buyer personas in a committee that have to decide on buying XYZ software. 90% or 85% of the buyer's journey is done on demand, self-service by that buyer. So he or she who's looking to buy, whether it's Lemlist or Gong.io or Drift or whomever, they've already done their homework. Now they're just trying to, validate who they can trust more, where their peers might be signaling that, hey, these folks are the real deal. Their software is what it says it does and delivers it does. So you've got the G2 Crowds of the world, obviously, that give, the badges that are all user or generated, which give more validity than just any software company or any B2B company just kind of pounding their chest and saying, we're the best, right? So I really do love the fact that, and I think you're one of the few software companies that has on the resource page, literally, here's from our clients, what they're doing, what's working, what's not working, right? And it almost, I love that it's kind of an attack on the blog case studies. Case studies, of course someone's going to say something good in a case study. You don't call out to someone as a client evangelist and say, hey, on this case study, make sure you mention all the bad things that have gone wrong with us, right? Support tickets and issues and et cetera, et cetera. No one does that, right? And I think when we have enough savvy, buyers these days, which I want to get into a question for you about buyers. So I'm on the fourth floor I'm a Gen Xer. So I'm getting in my 40s, getting into my 50s. Don't know if you're in a millennial. I presume you are, but generational workforce is changing. And in decision buyer committees for SaaS products, it's changing. Just had a call with a peer colleague of yours, like SVP of marketing for Terminus yesterday. And he mentioned this. He goes, listen, we've got to make sure we're communicating in the right channels and with the right kind of messaging and community building or what have you, because decision makers are not baby boomers anymore that want to be taken out to golf or a fancy dinner. These are folks that are now, looking at maybe millennials that are coming into director level positions or senior level positions, or Gen Xers like myself that have had their foot both in pre-internet, like before there was the internet and fax. I remember those days, and to what we are now, where literally everything is on our, on a device, right? On our phone. So what do you think as the founder of Lemlist, as a kind of a forward-thinking SaaS founder, how are you trying to address the future decision makers or buying committee?
I think you made some really, really good points in the fact that things are changing. So taking someone to dinner or to golf, obviously, like, first of all, within COVID time, it's not even possible now. So
it's impossible.
That's the first thing. But as things are going to get back to like the new normal, if we can call it like this, I feel like, people love transparency. So for a lot of time, we saw really big brands, and the biggest brands of all time, who keep lying to the consumers. And we are seeing trends where transparency is really important, because whenever you're buying a software, a product, or a service, the psychological, I would say, aspect of it is you buy from people you trust, you admire, or you respect. And to build that trust with people, transparency is key, or your brand and what you're building as a company is going to be the key. And your brand is not just the logo, on your website. It's how your customer service support the clients, how the marketing is writing about certain topics, how the CEO is behaving. Just look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk is going to make one announcement, the stock market is going to go super up, super down. It's crazy. But this is the reality. The reality is that as things, as times go by, it's not possible anymore to say, put a big sign outside and saying, we are the best. This is us. Buy us, buy us, buy us, buy us. And the one with the most money will win. It doesn't work like this. Nowadays, anyone can become an influencer. As you said, you have everything on one single device. You have people who are 18 who are multimillionaires on TikTok or Instagram and things like that. And the reason why is anyone with a device right now can be a creator or can become a creator. So in the long run, we see that the way we build relationships as human has totally evolved. 10 years ago, social networks, okay, we had Facebook, that's it. It was the very beginning. Now you can look at every single vertical, the dating, the way we meet with others, like a networking app, LinkedIn, all these type of things. Everything has changed. And because everyone's hiding behind, this type of the best image you want to showcase of your company, what you're doing, etc. I think that we're getting back to something much more natural, like the transparency, the fact that we're not flawless, that it's important to be vulnerable, showing okay, shit happens. It's okay to say it, it's okay to say you're not perfect. But I think that the companies, especially with, as you were mentioning also, with SaaS booming, with COVID, and companies trying to transition towards something more digital as we go, I feel really the barrier to entry into the SaaS world is going down, but going down dramatically, meaning 5 or 10 years ago, you wanted to build a website, many businesses would go through an agency. Now, everyone knows about Wix, Webflow, WordPress, all these type of things. then you're going to have like right now the exact same things for SaaS. You have like companies like even like Webflow, Bubble, like all this type of no code, Zapier that allows you to do Airtable, all this type of thing. You can connect and create a SaaS that you can sell. And the fact that the entry barrier is so low right now and it's going to just keep going down will force SaaS to become a commodity. And if SaaS is a commodity, the only differentiator you're going to have is who are you? Like who are you as a company, as a person, as an individual, or as like a group of person working at a company. And your who will become your brand, and your brand will be what will help you connect, I think, on a much deeper level with your customers, users. And I really see the market evolving like this. And I think it's a great thing because to me, if you can connect, like Elon Musk, for example, we like him, we don't like him. It doesn't matter. Like the fact is, this guy is inspiring. He's doing things that no one thought of, is taking risk, and is inspiring like for millions of entrepreneurs out there. So to me, he's doing a good job,
Yeah.
And yeah.
It makes me think, you just mentioned him, and you mentioned something in your cold calling seminar for your cold emailing seminar for the course, which was very well done, by the way. I think that neuro network of connecting with people in authentic ways through things like LinkedIn and through community building like Facebook, it is what has been prevalent in the last maybe 5 years, but more so because of COVID. That really accelerated as well for those companies like yourself that doubled down on community and content. They saw that as a window or an opportunity to do so, and they've done well, Lemlist included. When you think about like the Elon Musks of the world, these are category designers, right? So we were talking just a few minutes ago about the no code future of SaaS, right? I think there was Anderson mentioned SaaS is eating, software is eating the world, was a famous quote by him. But then someone did another quote, I don't know who it was, anonymous, I don't know, but it was, and AI is eating software. And then Scott Brinker, the VP of platforms at HubSpot, I was fortunate enough to have him on as a guest too. And he said almost exactly what you said. So now we're going into the next decade of SaaS, and the evolution that he thinks is coming is no code, more no code type platforms, right? Ecosystems. Also the fact that we're all becoming augmented sales leaders, augmented marketers, because now we have AI or no code, plus there still has to be that human element, right? People go to Lemlist and hey, Lemlisters, because there's a persona behind that, a founder like yourself and your other co-founders, right? And so part of what I think you're saying that resonates is that, to differentiate yourself, because if we're going down the path of becoming a commodity, then if you're not building a community, you will fall into a commodity, right? And so that's great. I think that it's easier said than done as well. And you're a testament to that, because it's taken you guys 5 years of blood, sweat, and tears, I'm sure, right? Of having to put the time and effort. And speaking of that, what if there was like a pie? What time and what percentage of that pie do you feel that SaaS founders, and maybe in your experience, has to be spent on that brand affinity and community building versus the other, which is obviously like SaaS metrics of, CAC and the KPIs around ARR, MRR, you name it, anything Nathan Lacka would ask you. How much of that is, SaaS metrics versus let us build a community and brand?
To be honest, I think most CEOs are afraid to talk to their customers. Right now, like we started 3 years ago, so in 2018, we have crossed $8 million in ARR. Mm-hmm. We're growing at a 2-digit month-over-month growth rate. And I wouldn't know anyone at that stage that would do the amount of customer interview that I'm doing. So right now, even with the course, I'm doing, like this one-on-one coaching for the one that kind of like purchased in first. And for me, this is 100 people that I'm meeting. So 50 hours of my time. You could say like, you're the CEO, you could spend your time like way differently, etc. But no, because the relationship I'm building with this person is just unique, helping them, like putting my hand into what they are doing and trying to give them the best advice possible so they succeed. And to me, like this is your only and sole purpose as a CEO. It's to inspire your employee to do the same, but also lead with example. And this is what I'm trying to do. Like I believe that, people who are just telling what to do, it can work at first, but in the long run, or when shit hit the fan, people will start be defying, like about you and say like, yeah, but you're saying to do X, but you're not doing it. And they are true, like they are right. And for me, it's like when shit hit the fan, because it always happens, I need to be there, and I to be, okay, I'm going to fix the fan. Don't worry, like I'm there. And for me, this is super important. So if we had to spend like kind of like a time frame, I think like, to me, at least like it would be maybe like a third of your time should be about like your community, your users, the person that are like, like that will build the future of your company. And then another 30% is on your team. I would say like 10%, 10 to 15% on vision, strategy, etc. And the rest would be more about like metrics, making sure that business is running, etc., etc. But really this big chunk, I think it should be equal the amount you spend with your team and helping your team grow to what you're doing with your users. Because if you stop talking with your customers, eventually you lose the sense of what's going on. Because eventually, like, yeah, at first I was running sales prospecting campaigns every single week. Now it's more difficult for me to do it. I try to keep, like a hand in it, running networking, this type of things, but I don't have as much time. So instead of that, what I do is I go meet my customers, understand like where they are struggling. I give them actionable tips that they can start doing. And then after that, I know whether or not it worked. And for them, if they are successful, I'm successful. Because if you're using a product and you're having like the best ROI because someone taught you how to do it, and why would you quit? Why would you like stop using it? It doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense.
It's like built-in NRR. If you want your net retention revenue numbers to look good, then you have to spend that time to understand what the customers are using it or not using it. Because underutilization of software is huge, and we're talking about even with the big boys, Salesforce, gets underutilized.
For sure.
And then you got users who complain about, man, these licenses are super expensive. And, 4 years, 5 years ago, they went from classic to their new version, and it's even more expensive. And so I love that you're saying that as a high, bootstrapped, I would say mid to hyper growth company at 8 million ARR, that you're still seeing that you've got to keep an eye on what the user is experiencing. So you can then, I'm presuming, have the feedback loop to your product development team, think about the roadmap of the software and so forth. And, many CEOs or co-founders of SaaS companies sometimes get lost because they get thrown into maybe more of the financial and venture capitalist world of, we have to get around, a Series B or whatever. And your time gets sucked into that. So you seem to have deliberately with your founders, your co-founders, decided to know we're going to grow at our own pace. That allows you to have that time and not the stresses, of having to look for VC money, right? Is that a right presumption that you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, like a lot of my friends are CEOs of company who have raised like hundreds of millions, etc. And I know that their role is not something that I envy, to be honest, because they've been so far and I've met like people, who have raised really like a lot of money and that totally failed their company because they lost the sense of what are their customers doing. Because at some point, like if you raise a lot of money and you get the press, you get everything, it shows that you are successful. So in the mind of everyone, you are successful. And when you are successful and you see all that press, I think it's very difficult to show to others that you are wrong. Being wrong is not an issue. Like I love being wrong, but the truth is like the more successful your company become, the more you feel that you always need to be right, which is not the right behavior to have, but it's still a feeling, it's like as a lot of people, when they become successful feels like they have entirely changed and that they can't be wrong. And that's why, CEOs stop talking to their users because it's facing the truth. And the truth will tell you that this feature sucks and that this shouldn't happen like this and that actually you were wrong. So you don't want to hear about it. So you prefer, like focusing on your team, telling them what to do, what the long-term vision. But obviously, like the long-term vision is always nice, like same for us. We want to be a unicorn in 3 years. Oh yeah, that's super exciting. Yeah, but how are we gonna get there? It's like, yeah, and for that you have to put the work, and you have to do the things that are not, that you don't always appreciate because it shows you that you are wrong, etc. So to me, if you want to build like a really successful business, from what I've learned, is always put your ego aside. You shouldn't have ego in business. You should be happy to be wrong, because being wrong means you're learning something. And to me, like this is what I'm trying to, to educate the team about, the fact that we're always learning. Spending time with our customers is our biggest asset. And the fact that they want to spend time with us is even better, And this is, again, an iterative process that should never stop, no matter how big you are.
Yeah, I love that. I love that sentiment, and amen, hallelujah, and more power to you that you have that mentality, because I think you're right. Brian Halligan from HubSpot, the founder CEO, in a few inbounds, maybe 2 inbounds ago, when we could actually be at Boston and be inbound, he mentioned that the new selling is helping, and that the companies that are growing exponentially, like the Amazons of the world, like the Netflixes, are because they care more about how they're servicing their customer and customer base, or future customer base, more than their actual product. And so a lot of that is reflective of what you're saying. And they're obviously like at unicorn stages, right? Those two. So you guys will, I'm sure, will get there with that kind of true north guidance that you guys have as a mentality. So awesome. What about, now that we're talking about sort of unicorns and VCs, now 2020 saw a lot of activity from Zoom and its IPO, to Hopin in the virtual space, buying StreamYard, to you name it. There's just so much, right? And I would imagine that the temptation, right? Like you got the little angel here and the little devil here talking to G, after meetings with your team, and maybe even some not investors, but some partners that want to help you guys. How has that been? And I know you guys recently said no to a 30 million VC funding opportunity. So walk us through that.
Yeah. So first of all, like the reason why we said no, it was to show to the world, which was something very important to me, is to explain to people that you don't need funding to be successful. I'm not against people who are raising funds. I'm not against companies and VCs, etc., because I think in many cases it's super helpful. I'm just saying that raising funds is not the solution to a business problem. And that a lot of people believe that because they have their article in TechCrunch, that's it, Now I become a new CEO. I don't have to talk to my customers. I don't have to take care of sales. I don't have to do marketing. I don't have to take care of the brand. This is the biggest issue. And another issue I see, because I've coached so many entrepreneurs among the years, etc., is that people waste so much time trying to raise funds when they're not at the right stage, whether if they focus on profitability. And the reason why I'm saying that is not like I'm judging, as I was in the same spot, for me, I spent 2 weeks because, I get bored fast. So I was just, okay, fuck it. I'm going to be focused on my business. But I saw people, wasting 6 or 8 months of their life trying to raise funds instead of, just go talk to your customers, go build a product, go try to do something, that's going to be helpful, bring value. And to me, it's so frustrating to see that because I know that when you get to that stage where you're highly profitable and you do things like publicly, funds will come to you. Like for us, we have like VCs and funds reaching out to me, like between 3 to 5 funds every single week.
Right.
And this is because, I've done things publicly. Every time I write an article about our metrics, I know I'm going to receive 20 messages. But this happened, and the day where we want to raise, we'll be able to do it. So what I thought is, okay, I'm going to document a process of fundraising. And once we receive the offer, we're going to say no, just to show to the world that it's okay, to say no, because you can run your company the way you want. You can be highly profitable, take dividends every single year. And it's not because you raise, because something also that's quite funny is that a lot of people think that companies who raised a lot of money make the richest founders, which is actually totally untrue. Mm-hmm. It's like whenever you go with a VC, they will not be happy if you take dividends at the end of the year. They will want you to reinvest everything in the business. So you're never going to do that. whenever you're going to want to increase your salary, they're going to say, oh yeah, we need to discuss about it. So you're going to feel bad. And a lot of VCs tell me, like, no, we never force founders not to increase their salary. But what the founder says is, yeah, but you have the VCs, so they undervalue themselves, and they say, yeah, it's okay, like I want to be in the game. I want to, invest everything in the business. So my salary is the last thing, But the truth, it's not that, like you're taking risk. You should take high salary. You should pay yourself really well, get a lot of money because you're working hard and you deserve it. And I think like you allow yourself to do that when you're the owner of your company, you're highly profitable and you're growing. But again, I think we're not saying that we will never raise money or anything like that.
Never say never, but
exactly. But
you also know that you're profitable being privately funded, meaning bootstrapped. You're your own investor, if you will.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when you said that, you reminded me of Rand Fishkin's book. He talks about that, where he goes, also the pressure when you get VC money is now they want a 10x or a 5x or 10x, right? So now the pressure becomes exponentially more, and goes back to what you were saying. Now
for Rand, it was terrible because he received an initial investment, and he got actually like a acquisition offer from HubSpot because he was getting on really well with them at the time. The offer was around like $25 million, and he had to say no. He wanted to do it, but the investors had put in the contract a block stop. So it's essentially like a clause that will forbid you to sell if they're not happy with the price, which they were not.
And they wanted a higher valuation.
Yeah, and afterwards Moz went down. It was not the same it was not as competitive as Ahrefs or as SEMrush. So they were number one in the market, which was a new market, SEO at the time, etc. And they started like losing market shares. And for him, it was terrible because his wife had like I think a cancer or something. So like you never know what can happen in life. It's good to have saving and good like to also like have money on the side. But if you have too much pressure from someone from the outside, shit can go south.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad that you're sharing that, because there's other obviously founders that are in your predicament. They're trying to grow. They're hitting maybe a fork where now they're at X number of ARR, millions, and they're thinking, should we get VC money? How can we do this, right? But there's alternatives. There's other ways, right? And if they reach out to Nathan Latka, he'd probably be more than happy to give them some funding, right? Yeah. I love like what Nathan has done too. He's a bit of a genius in how he's created his own community, how he's built businesses from it, right? But getting back to you and Lemlist. So now Lemlist is in a category, subcategory. I don't know what to even call it, because I think that's another thing I want to ask you. So SaaS, as it's grown and matured, I think is starting to bleed, where you have, different types of SaaS platforms that could almost, serve the same purpose, because they do, marketing automation or sales personalization or intent data, et cetera, et cetera. How do you see Lemlist sort of fitting in or evolving or differentiating themselves from the others that are out there? What guides you to think this way for you and your team?
I think an analogy that I really like to make is just next door, I have two restaurants. One restaurant the food is really like perfect, but the owner is a real jerk. Like he talks trash to the waiters. He throws things at them. Like it's really, really bad, like the way he treats waiters. And on the next side, there is a restaurant where the food is not as good. But, like the first time I went there, the guy asked me my name. The second time I went there, it was like, hey, G, what's up? And then, like whenever I need to go and eat something, I'm like, where should I go? And then, it's my choice is made. I'm going to the place where I feel the most comfortable. So the question I have, it's like all these shops and experience you're feeling in the real life, how can you transfer that to the software world? Because in the end, if the customer service is really good, if the product does the job, and if the content you get, the training you're getting, and all these things, makes you something or that people want to connect with, then you won, because you're ahead of the competition. It's exactly the same of why do I buy an iPhone versus Samsung? It's like, like how this brand makes me feel, this is important. Like when I see like how Apple reveals, I bought the 12 Pro when it was live. Like the next day I bought it, even though it's exactly the same as the 11 Pro. Like they haven't changed a single thing, or maybe one thing, but the features, I don't care. It's just like, oh yeah, the corners are a bit different. I love that.
Right.
And
you bought into that. You're a fan of their technology, and maybe now also, Apple now is going after Facebook sort of way, in a way, with the opt out. So for no tracking and reselling, and the whole situation that's happening with cookies. So I kind of love that you brought in iPhone or Apple, because Apple, as you know, obviously was a category designer or disruptor. Hey, they weren't the first ones to come out with cell phones at scale. Nokia was. These Swedish guys, in Scandinavia, not too far from Europe and your neck of the woods, right? These were the geniuses that they made the Motorola's and the Nokias back in the day.
Yeah.
When you flip phone or a razor and you thought you were cool. But Steve Jobs was a marketing genius and a kind of like a future teller, a futurist, where he saw where the users hadn't even seen, in terms of being able to have something that you could have on your hand and be able to give you everything, right, with apps and what have you, and created the whole iOS system and etc. But so as your analogy is that yes, there are other vendors out there that could do what Lemlist does, but it's also the experience, the customer journey that you're giving them, the not just the software, but the whole experience with the community, the learned lessons, the transparency. So yeah, that's true. And those are real, I think, advantages, especially in a world where, we're becoming closer and closer to no code, and where, because of that, maybe then a buyer is looking at, well, what is the value? Why should I be paying X per license if it's not like they're doing tons of programming investments on their end, right? So that's interesting you say that. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, so I do also have a rapid fire section where I ask you some stuff that I think is going to be neat for the listeners. But before I get to that, is there anything that that you're currently looking at in the market and saying, you know what, this is where disruption is needed?
Yep.
And what is that, if you want to share?
Yeah, it's essentially, and it goes hand in hand with what Lemlist is doing, and where we could really grow is, if you look at CRMs, first thing is, no one likes CRMs. Like, I've never heard someone saying, I'm having a blast on Salesforce. Like, no one, like literally no one on earth.
Right. Yeah. No. Like they say, no kid ever said, when I grow up, I want to be a Salesforce administrator. Right? No kid ever said that. Right.
Exactly. And again, like CRMs, it's like customer relationship management. However, a lot of people put their leads into it, put the prospects. So why is it called customer? Like, it means that there is a huge market that is for this specific part, and where no one is actually there. So for me, there is a huge category to create in that space that is not a CRM, that looks like a CRM, but it's much more like where the interface is much nicer. Because right now, like what we have, whether it's like Pipedrive, Salesforce, HubSpot, they all have limitations. People are frustrated. Mm-hmm. I don't have like the answer, because I think it's like a million or billion and multi-billion dollar, answer. But still, I know this is a space I'm getting like more and more interested in, because I'm feeling that there is something there. And I know that our community are struggling with CRMs, and I know that we can do something about it. So
hey, listen, I second you on that. I mean, I've used HubSpot, I'm using ActiveCampaign, there's Marketo, there's a number of them, right? And then obviously the 8,000-pound gorilla for B2B enterprise, which is Salesforce, right? You're almost like, you have to have Salesforce, or else you're not in the game, right?
Yeah.
And I agree that as we're moving to more of this, how can we become even more personalized, and how can we create really community? The UI, the platform has to change with that. It's not going to be an easy change, because, as you know, change management, especially at enterprise level, it's like watching paint dry. You know what I mean? It's slow, right? You think there's like 5 decision maker committee in like SMBs to mid-market. There's like 30, right? Plus legal counsel, plus blah, 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 CTO, CIOs, you name it, right? When it comes to enterprise level, right? So it's harder, but I like what you're saying, because I too have experienced throughout the years this discomfort with CRMs. And also the fact that I think even CRMs, I'm talking back in like the 90s, like even before like the Salesforce became the go-to, people would, hire IT teams to create their own CRMs and call it customer relationship management, but it was really just kind of a Rolodex, digitally, and you're still, playing a numbers game. How many people can I send something out to cold, and, where do the numbers land on open rates and click-throughs and all that? And I think we're getting more and more savvy and more mature as buyers, as well as sales and marketers, in that we don't just want to have metrics or fluff numbers for the sake of having metrics and fluff numbers, right? So I'm glad that your team is thinking of that, and it'll be interesting what you guys can kind of come up with, right? But I think Lemlist does a great job on the personalization, which is key, and trying to make authentic personalization via Lemlist at scale, which I know is kind of the core of what Lemlist does. So that's awesome. So let me get right into the rapid fire questions. You ready? Okay.
Right.
So like I said, on the fourth floor, Back to the Future was a franchise I loved watching as a kid. So if you, Mr. G, could jump back on the DeLorean and with Marty and Doc and speak to a younger G, what would you tell him? Or
start sooner. You learn so much more by starting your own business than by going to school. And I've done a lot of studies, so I can tell.
Yeah, that's some pretty good advice. And I said, I believe leaders are readers. And so what are some books, and they don't have to be business books, that have inspired you or has, sort of formed you a little bit in your journey?
I really liked Lost and Founder from Ren Fishkin, because when I read it, I was at that time where, like being a CEO can be like a very lonely journey. And knowing that other people are lonely, or I've seen a lot of like ups and downs and fucks up, like makes you feel good, So this was one I really enjoyed. Also enjoyed like the I forget it's from Mark Roberts. I think it's Sales Engagement Formula or something like the Mark Roberts was at HubSpot, and essentially it's pretty like a short book, but well done on the hiring side of things, and really enjoyed it. And then like I have actually all my books over there. Maybe I can find. Yeah, The Hard Thing About Hard Things was really great.
Yeah, that's a good book too.
Yeah.
So no, those are all great books. Is there right now any app or sport hobby that you do to recharge, reboot? I mean, I can imagine you're super swamped, busy building the community, managing your team, your development team, your sales team, working with your co-founders. What does G do to unwind?
I run a lot. I do a lot of HIIT training, so high intensity interval trainings. I cycle. So I wanted to do an Ironman next year. So I need to start doing like triathlon.
Awesome. Hey man, that's great. I love that. Maybe you could reach back out to Noah. Noah every summer does this bike thing. He's a huge biker.
Nice.
But his, I don't know, is what kind of biking you do, but his biking seems to be more kind of like the off-road biking.
Okay.
Kind of trails.
Yeah.
But he always does a cool event where he, invites other SaaS founders as well, I think. So you might want to reach out to him. But that's awesome. So biking to unwind. And do you find that when you're doing that physical activity, and I do soccer for me, for example, right, that I kind of just forget about anything and everything related to business. And sometimes you get aha moments and clarity about something and you weren't even thinking about it. Is that true for you? Or what does that feel like when you're in that activity?
I try to focus on my breathing, otherwise I'm gonna die. No, but it's true that sometimes, but my moment of clarity and aha moment, to be entirely transparent, they always happen when I'm doing the dishes. I have like a dishwasher, but I never use it because first, I think I like having like really hot water and cleaning, because it's the satisfaction of removing something dirty and making it clean. I think it does the same with my mind. It's like lots of things and everything becomes clean and clear. And then I've got like awesome ideas.
Hey man, I love that. Now, this is one from Latka. Married, single, kids, no kids. What's your status?
Single and no kids that I know of. So.
Well, you did travel to Colombia, Bolivia, and so you might have un chiquito en Sudamérica. ¿Quién sabe? Colombiano, boliviano.
No sé.
No sabes. No, this is great. Now, was there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to discuss? Anything that you want to?
No, just like if there are any young entrepreneur, like you might feel the imposter syndrome. So you don't feel like legitimate in the things you do, and it doesn't care. What matters is to start doing. Human beings, are like momentum animals. So what matters is to get started. The first step is going to put you in discomfort, but it will allow you to make the second step easier and the third step easier, and so on and so forth. So take that first step, don't be afraid, and let's go, have fun.
I love it. That's great advice. You're right. Momentum. Just keep going and start. It's like when you go to a gym, if the first day, the first week sucks, but then you start building momentum. So I love that. And so, G, it's been a pleasure, a true pleasure and a blast. And I could talk to you for hours, I'm sure, but out of respect of your time, I won't. So tell me how folks can contact you and learn about more, personally to reach out to you as well as to learn about Lemlist.
So for the website Lemlist, it's lemlist.com. You can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. Just type G. and you will find me. And you can also reach out to me via email. So it's Guillaume@lemlist.com. I guess we'll just write this down in the notes because it's a yes, French name.
I will have all that in the show notes. Guillame, but we'll have it on the notes. So G, again, thank you so much for being an awesome guest for Smart Chickens, our podcast. And we look forward to continued growth. And I'm part of your group too, so I'm going to be one of those 50 hours.
Awesome.
I'm excited for that. Yeah.
Looking forward to it as well.
Thanks again.
Thanks a lot, Gianni.
Make sure to follow and subscribe to Smart Chickens podcast at digitechie.com/smart-chickens and all podcast channels. If you get value from our podcast content, make sure to leave a review, share, and connect with our host, Gianni Quintana, on LinkedIn.